Hello folks, welcome back. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. It's been 2 months since President Donald Trump issued an executive order on the 7th of February about a refugee resettlement program in the United States for Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination, and also kind of sent a warning message to South Africa that we're no longer going to give you financial assistance, foreign aid, because of the actions that run contrary to our national security interest and our national interest. Apparently the media are still stuck on the refugee issue as being the reason for the executive order. And if they're not stuck on that, they're stuck on the ICJ case, the International Court of Justice case that South Africa's taken against Israel. Well, that's only part of the story here, folks, and don't know how many times I have to tell people that it's much broader than that. There's a number of egregious offenses that the government of South Africa has committed against the United States from the perspective of the United States government that need to be addressed, and that's being ignored by the government of South Africa, the ANC in particular, the African National Congress, and by the media, wholesale ignoring the fact there's much more to this. So let's talk about the refugee program. The Refugee Resettlement Program is one specified in an executive order by President Trump. He's identified a special category of people, which would put them in a priority 2 if this is promulgated. A lot of people are impatient. I understand their concern. It's been 2 months. I guess some people expected this way an instantaneous thing. But here's a few facts about the Refugee Resettlement Program that you need to be aware of before you panic. Number one, it doesn't exist. There is a refugee program in law. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980 creates this, a possibility for refugees to come to America as well as people here who apply for asylum. That's all in the law. It's been there since 1980. And 3.1 million people have been relocated to the United States as refugees since 1980 under this program. The overwhelming majority of them are so-called people of color coming from broken countries that have come to the United States. This is the first time that I can recall, other than perhaps Bosnia and Herzegovina, where white people, whatever white people are actually being prioritized to come to the United States. It's a pretty rare situation. Anyway, so the program doesn't exist. We're still waiting for the promulgation, the issuance of guidance from the Department of State and Department of Homeland Security about the program. The next thing I need to tell you is that it costs absolutely nothing. You pay nothing. As I warned people on February 7th, within a couple hours of the executive order being issued, when I went live on a broadcast, there will be charlatans, hucksters, scamsters who will try to get money from you, and you should not pay anything. People telling you have to pay money to get documents certified, approved, that's utter nonsense. People telling you they can put you in priority placement, that's utter nonsense. There's no such thing. It is non-existent. They are frauds. They are deceiving you. Now, they may provide a service to you, but it's a service you don't need. If you wish to apply for the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program, it costs nothing. I don't know how clear I can be about that for the 1,000th time, maybe 10,000th time at this stage. It costs nothing. You pay zero, nothing. Bear in mind that refugee resettlements for people whose lives are in peril. That's the normal situation. There are 7.6 million registered refugees currently sitting in places like Uganda from South Sudan, or Kenya from Somalia, or Chad from Darfur in Sudan. These people are waiting, some have been waiting for months, years to be resettled as refugee. President Trump's executive order potentially, it looks like, puts Afrikaners, whatever the definition of Afrikaner will be by the Department of State, at the front of the queue. Now, on the 20th of January, there was an executive order issued by the president pausing the refugee resettlement program for 90 days because of pervasive fraud by the Biden administration. And there were a lot of people coming to this country who had no business coming here. The vetting wasn't being done properly according to the Trump administration, and I would have to agree with them. So they paused the entire program globally. But that does not affect this executive order. This executive order came out subsequent to that and gave directions to the Department of State and Homeland Security to establish a program to prioritize Afrikaners for resettlement in the United States. And therefore, they have marching orders. They are moving slowly, according to some people. I would tell you that they're moving at an appropriate pace at this stage. What we have seen is that the embassy has set up an email address. They did that on the 10th of February. And that's available on the U.S. Embassy website in South Africa. You can just do a Google search, U.S. Embassy South Africa. Click on that, it'll take you to it. And you'll see it's PRM is included in the email address, and that stands for Population Resettlement Migration. So you put that in there, that email address. You can send them an email. That goes to the embassy, and they'll forward that on to the PRM Bureau at the State Department to show that you have an interest in becoming a refugee and leaving South Africa under this program. This is unique. Normally, a refugee is someone who flees their country and finds safe haven in a neighboring country. So this is unique. It's not unusual though. It's rare, but it does happen. We've had it in Cuba, we've had it in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and now it's being offered in South Africa to a special category of people, so designated by the President of the United States, Afrikaners, whatever that definition may be. So it costs you nothing. The program doesn't exist yet, but if you have interest, you can express that interest to the American Embassy. I can't tell you what to write in email. That's not my responsibility, but I mean, common sense would tell you that you would write to them and express interest in applying for the Refugee Resettlement Program and state that you've been a victim of racial discrimination in South Africa, or you have a fear of racial persecution, something like that. And if you give a few reasons why, that probably doesn't hurt your case. You need to give them contact information, email, telephone number, so they can reach you. All right, you can do so on behalf of your entire immediate family. Beyond that, anyone who's an adult who's not in your immediate family would have to apply on their own. So that's what we know about that so far. Now, what I can tell you is that subsequent to all the videos, I've done dozens of videos talking about this program. I've also started doing videos about those who've actually gone through interviews, because unbeknownst to any of us, the State Department, there was a team that came over to Pretoria and set up interviews with some of the people who contact them via email. And those people, some of them, a small number, were given preliminary interviews. Now, these weren't refugee resettlement interviews, which is what a lot of people are expecting. They were preliminary interviews as a fact-finding mission by the U.S. government to find out the extent of what's going on, the extent of interest, and the sort of things they're going to deal with when they field full teams to do this. Now, we don't know what goes beyond that, other than the New York Times claims that they were also scouting for commercial buildings for refugee resettlement centers. Well, I'll tell you that's utter nonsense. There won't be any refugee resettlement center in Pretoria. We are not going to set up facilities to house people in South Africa in a sovereign state. That's just not going to happen. What's likely to happen is that, as I said on February 7th and said subsequently since then repeatedly, is that they probably found commercial facilities where they can send investigators or interviewers to meet with people in mass, multiple numbers, get their interviews over and process them. That's what they're probably doing. First off, you have to understand the American Embassy in Pretoria doesn't have the space to accommodate people to do this. They could probably do 2 or 3, maybe 4 interviews a day there at max. They have other responsibilities. It's an embassy, and its mission with the government of South Africa is first and foremost. Secondary mission is with other diplomatic actors in the community. And third mission is consular services. Our main consular service is in Johannesburg on number 1 Stanton Drive, apparently soon to be Leila Khaled Drive, unless that changes. And then we also have a consulate in Cape Town and one in Durban. They could potentially handle these things, but they're also not equipped for this sort of thing. And we don't usually do in-country refugee resettlement. We usually do it from a third country. So most likely they'll scout locations around the country so that people don't have to travel all over the country so you can be interviewed. But I can't guarantee that, but that's my expectation. I can tell you, I know people that live in the Western Cape who have flown to Pretoria to be interviewed, people that have flown from KZN to be interviewed, people who live in the Gauteng area who've driven up for their interviews. So some people are complaining it's unfair. Why are they doing the interviews there? Well, because you have to understand, we have to get a feel for what's going on. By we, I mean the U.S. government. Anyway, so it costs nothing. The program hasn't been promulgated yet. I've had several people claim that they've got approval to go back, but I have no evidence of that whatsoever. No release from the State Department. I find that skeptical. I suspect those people misunderstood something that was said in an interview. But there's a questionnaire that one of my moderators put together based on the second interview that was conducted, which I related the experience of that person. They took the questions there and made a common sense questionnaire. That questionnaire has been made available in the U.S. Refugee Telegram group and in the WhatsApp groups. The WhatsApp groups are full, though, so you can't join it, but the Telegram group has space for 220,000 people, and there's only about 2,000 there right now. So if you're interested in that, you want to go join that group, and you can follow my live streams and find out how to join that group. Anyway, folks, so that's that. People keep asking me, can I apply for the program? You can't. We can express interests, and I would recommend you express interest if you want to do it. Again, I'm not encouraging anyone to come to America. I'm not discouraging you to come to America. But as an independent journalist, I feel the obligation to give you the facts and tell you the truth compared to what a lot of media are doing and people who are trying to undermine unity in the South African communities and dissuade you from taking action, which is your personal decision. As I've told people, if you're staying in South Africa, good on you. People who are leaving shouldn't rubbish your decision to stay. That's your personal decision. If you're trying to leave South Africa, people who want to stay shouldn't rubbish you because they don't know your circumstances. It's your circumstances, not theirs. So I'm not an agent of the U.S. government. I don't work for the U.S. government. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel with lots of experience in Africa and having served in multiple embassies in Africa, the Middle East, and around Europe. And I'm relating my experiences and my understanding of the process. So pay nobody. If you're interested, express interest by writing to the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria. Information's on their website. And later on, when I have a chance, I'll put that email below this video. And don't believe all the rumors and nonsense out there. First off, if you come to America, you won't be sleeping in FEMA tents. FEMA doesn't handle refugees. They handle American disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes and things like that, floods. That's what FEMA does. It doesn't do anything with refugees. That's nonsense. You'll notice that the Biden regime stuck illegal immigrants, not refugees, but illegal immigrants, in hotels at taxpayer expense in Manhattan, which cost us billions of dollars. We paid for that. The U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program spends upwards of $2.7 billion per year to resettle anywhere from 30,000 to 150,000 refugees in any given year, on average. This program, there's one more wrinkle to it. That's President Trump's program, which is still being promulgated. In the meantime, this is a confusing wrinkle that I need to share with you. Representative Troy Nehls of Texas has introduced a bill in the House of Representatives which would identify Afrikaners as Caucasian South Africans. And it also sets some kind of conditions for folks to come here. That's a bill that would have to be voted on in the House, go through committee, vote on the House, go through the Senate, be voted on. If there's no problem, then it goes to the president. Usually there's a problem, it goes back to the House, they negotiate out, and eventually gets to the president. That may take weeks, months potentially for that to happen. I would tell you that Representative Nehls' bill is really just a signal to South Africa that the United States is paying attention to what's going on there and to the racial discrimination against minorities. It has gotten the attention of Congress. I think that's the purpose of that bill. But if it comes into law, it could be another way for folks to get here. The decision by the State Department on who an Afrikaner is could include much more than the 2.8 million white Afrikaners. It could include colored folks who culturally consider themselves to be Afrikaners. It could include Indians who consider themselves Afrikaners, and there are some folks like that, and even potentially some black South Africans who consider themselves to be Afrikaans culturally. I mean, look at Referensa. He sings in Afrikaans. So that's a little bit about the program. You should get the truth. I'm trying to give the truth as best I can. It's now been 2 months. We don't have a program yet, but there is movement. Things are happening. You need to stay tuned, and I'd ask you to subscribe to my channel and check back here periodically and find updates. There's a playlist that specifically puts videos, and this video will be in there, about this program. There's where you are 2 months in, folks. Not sure what to ask you about what you have to say, unless you're angry or you're happy, but there is something underway. When it'll be done, we don't know. All the best, and again, you come here, you come here. You don't come here, you don't come here. This is all about sharing the correct information. Cheers, folks.